Good morning, Matumelo and Gerhard. Welcome here.
Thanks.
We are having a little chat this morning regarding the past and where did Prispek Consulting come from, Spektra Financial Services and Prisma Accountants. And I would like to have this conversation to see where are the advantages for clients in having financial advisors and accountants and not trying it on their own. And so maybe the best thing for us is to start in 1996. Gerhard, where did we end up?
Well, we started in 1996 with a brainchild of a one-stop financial shop. And that's how we started the process. And Christo and myself got together and said, listen, how can we start a business that will benefit all our clients? And how can we, by giving and rendering our services separately and combined, give a client the best advice? And that's how we started it in 1998 in a small office. And through a lot of grace, we are where we are.
Yeah, and I think that's where the Prispek Consulting comes in, where it evolved from the Prisma Accountants and the Spektra Financial Advisors at the end of the day. I always make the joke to say the accountants look backwards, they see what happened, and financial advisors want to look forward. So I think that's where the best benefit for client comes in. And having that ease and speed of communication in the office, because of the financial advice being so interlinked between having your tax benefits as well as your financial planning. Because I do believe that financial planning, other than assets like cash, bonds, property, equity, I think having a good after-tax return really boosts your savings as well. Yeah.
Also, because we do holistic financial planning, tax does come into play a lot. So it becomes important to have experts in that regard to help us in making the best decisions for the client. Because a lot of the times when we talk about investing, we say we want to invest in a tax-effective way. And that's where it comes into play, where we integrate all the information that we have for the best outcome. And I think that's one of the major benefits we have at Prispek.
Yes, and exactly my point is that's one of the big things about a financial advisor, because we work in a bit of a grey area. So not having the access to an accountant is actually a very difficult thing, because we then make a lot of assumptions. And that's where Prisma comes in.
And also the accounting field changed a lot over the last couple of years. You mentioned we looked backwards. It changed. It's a live system. It's a live portfolio running your tax. You can't make decisions after year end going back to the previous financial year. You need to make them up front. And that's what's helping a lot, working with the financial advisors and saying, listen, can we do this? Can we do this? This is the tax rates. This is the space available for retirement annuities and everything.
Yeah,
how
we've
can
got
we
the
plan
exact numbers.
Exact numbers. How can we plan so that we are there on 28 Feb? So that we don't say on the 1st of March, oh, we should have done that.
And also a thing is like offshore investing. If your tax affairs are in place, it's very easy to get tax clearances to do offshore investing. So that is also a big advantage of having this together. And like I said, the speed of this happening, when it's provisional tax season, getting the accountant has got the advantage now of getting those information very quickly and accurately. So yeah, that is one of the main things. And I think that is one of the questions I've got is, that is the costly mistakes I see clients make. Is what is your feeling when you see young clients and they say, but I don't have a lot of money. What do we need to do? And we don't need financial advice yet. What is your...
I think we had this conversation in the office. We were talking about having the coach if you are in sports. You could do it alone, but having a coach really gives you an edge. And because you have expertise that are then contributing in this journey of yours, you then have more than just talent. And if you are like me or any other youth who are working or in business, yes, you have the skills in doing what you're doing, but having somebody help you navigating in your finances gives you really an advantage. So doing it alone only matters in, for me, having the know-how and having a basic understanding, but also understanding that you do then need some sort of framework and structure and a professional helping you in making the best decisions for the journey that you are in, because life is long and you do need to plan for different stages of your life.
Exactly. For me, the fact that I think that's the most important thing is to start correctly. Because we do find clients starting off and educating themselves on Google and then implementing stuff, and then 10 years later they actually come for financial advice and then undoing a lot of damage. I mean, Gerhard does my tax at the end of the day, because one of the problems is on the tax is there's things to push the buttons that the clients say. It's so easy, push the buttons.
Yes. I think to add what Tumi mentioned is the fact that if you look at a sports team and you look at their coaching staff, if you look at a Federer at Wimbledon, at his coaching box, there's not one person sitting there. It's a box full of different individuals with different expertise, and that's what the client gets when he uses both entities.
At a much cost-effective base.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is also where I would like to get into the conversation. I mean, this is where having an office with personnel at the background that they're not always aware of, and the advantages of that, having a full team, succession planning, that type of thing. And also Gerhard, you can maybe allude on what are all the systems in place that is there that when we compare service and price, it's very difficult for a client to ascertain whether I'm getting value for money, because somebody can be cheaper or more expensive. But what are the advantages of having an office like us looking after your taxes?
The biggest advantage is the fact that you've got a person with knowledge available 24 hours basically, for 8 hours that we open on a day. The fact is that there's always somebody who will be able to assist. There's a back office seeing that everything is done. There's admin people working, who's corresponding with SARS every day to see that all the documents are done. You're looking at all the necessary compliance reports that are filed. Remember, you trust us with your important information. How do we handle that information? Where is that information saved and stored? Is it a reliable source? Are we complying with POPI, with PIA, all of those things? And we do, and that should give you the peace of heart that your value, we care about you, but how do I mention it? The value we provide.
Yes.
And you trust us with your personal information. How do we value that personal information? And that can be seen in how we comply and how we save and store and see that everything is done properly and according to the law.
I mean, data security, all those types of conversations and compliance. It's a costly exercise, but it's behind the scenes and people don't see that, and that's built into the system and the cost. When we see clients comparing us with other practices or one-man practices that are a bit cheaper, I think that is a value that clients can't see, but it's in the background there.
Yeah. I think the big value is, yes, you're dealing with an individual, but actually you're dealing with a system. As a client, you deal with a system that's in place.
A process.
A process. Everything is in place and well organized. So if one individual is not there tomorrow morning, the system will still be running. And that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think that's important when it's only one person doing your books. If that person goes on holiday or dies or whatever, what happens to your taxes and your financial planning? That is a risk.
Yes.
In our system, I mean, your plan is on a computer. It's stored in the cloud. Another financial advisor takes the plan. They've got a similar culture, similar view, so that helps to that we look after your plan going forward for the next 20 years, whatever the reasons, what could happen.
So I think that's a big value, is the fact that, and there's also more than one person knowing what's happening in your affairs. For example, as Christo mentioned, provisional tax, the discussions that goes on between the financial advisor and the accountant before calculations are done and sent to the client. The client doesn't see that, but they get the value.
And how do you express that in rands and cents? That is a difficult one. If you can maybe give us an example of, or without naming names, but I mean just on a provisional tax sense.
Without naming names, we had a client in February last year. We sat down, he made quite a profit in his business. We sat down, we discussed, we had a meeting with Christo, and we decided that we'll advise him to take 350,000 as a bonus. We took the 350,000, Christo invested it into a retirement annuity for him. So the 350,000 was deducted from income tax in the company as a legal expense. It was added to his income, which he then deducted due to the fact that he was allowed to deduct 350,000 contributed to a retirement annuity. And in that, approximately, we saved him 130,000 rand in income tax.
And then your fees is minuscule towards that benefit he received there.
Yes. But the thing is, the client weren't present at the hour conversation on how do we plan this, how do we put this in place, what's the best for the client, and how will we do that.
I think not understanding that process and the value in that is the same thing as not understanding compound interest and why it matters. So in compound interest, it's time that's spent in the market to give you that result at the end. And in the same instance...
And monitoring that.
Yes. So it's the same thing in having a team look into your finances and have all these little things come together and build up to.
If I can mention another case is busy with provisional tax now. It's August. I just phoned Christo and said, listen, this client is earning interest. We must do something before the end of Feb. And I know he will go and see her. It will be sorted out. So it's not a problem that we realize in June, July next year when we do our income tax. It's a problem that we saw now and acted on it.
Now the team at Spektra is actually sitting down with the problem and say, how do we fix this problem? Because we know about it, and it's not something that happened in the past and we can't do anything about it. We've actually now forward-looking are able to address those challenges and save a lot of cash and tax and money, and the investments grow much better that way. So yeah, for me, it's very important to get the message out there that the client needs to understand that we tell the client that we don't know how to weld. If you're a welder, we can't weld. Go out there and weld to the best of your ability and make the money. But then you've got the team behind you to assist you in the part where you're not as proficient as we are, to assist you in the tax and the financial planning to get the best benefits for you. So yes, educate yourself on financial and tax affairs, but don't think you know where to push the buttons and on the tax filing and get the
other value of working together is in the compliance sector is the fact that if a client is compliant and up to date in all his affairs, applying for a bond is that much easier, because immediately tax clearances, IT34s, all of those things are done, and Christo comes in with RV insurance, life insurance policies necessary,
assets and
liabilities. Everything is in plus, and we are able to answer the questions that are asked by the banks.
Yeah, so it does help for the client. They believe that sometimes that we only look out for SARS, but they don't realize the additional benefits of having these things in place. And for my side is, I mean, we've been in 25 years plus now in the business. And if we look back, Gerhard, how many clients that were compliant, paid their taxes on time, as little as possible within the law because of our help, how many of them are still in business and have actually grown versus the ones that never ever wanted to pay tax or wanted to, I mean, if you can...
I think COVID is a perfect example. That the clients that were up to date and followed the plans and worked with us, where we set proper cash flow planning in place, emergency funding, everything in place, they were able to get through COVID. But those who weren't compliant,
didn't listen to advice,
didn't plan properly, they failed. And that's the value. You only see the value when there's actually
when the tide goes out.
When there's a crisis, then you see the value. Because while everything is fine, you don't actually realize the value and you don't see the value. But when there's a crisis like COVID, we could see with our clients where we were proper cash flow planning, they had cash flow to go to, they could plan, they could change, they could apply to the banks because all this stuff were up to date for bonds and loans and everything. So I think that's the main thing, is that by preparing, you're actually preparing and planning for the future, because we don't know what's happening tomorrow morning. And that's what you need to plan for.
I think that's a very pertinent point, is the fact that, I mean, we currently have estates currently going. Unfortunately, that happens, but it just makes it so much easier for the poor beneficiaries, and the longest living is the fact that whilst they are at the moment in time, it's not a good thing, and it's to mourn, but at least we can offer them the opportunity to say, it's time for mourning. We look after the investments and the transfers and the tax, and everything's in place, so that you've got the peace of mind to know everything is okay.
That's true. Like you said, that it's only at times of crisis that you will then realize that. Then the same thing in the States, when now you're dealing with death and you're grieving, you have all these other things that you have to consider, and it becomes really difficult if you're doing it by yourself. But if you have a team that's first, before the time came, planned to say, when the time comes, this is what we're going to do. When the time does come, then it becomes important to...
The system kicks in,
kicks
process.
In
Yeah.
I think also adding to that is that the main thing about the system in process is that even if we pay your will, we know what to prepare for. Due to the fact that we know what your tax base is, we know your income, we do know where your assets are, assets, liabilities, and we can do proper tax planning and proper planning. And I think that's where the value lies.
And again, also now that looking back and seeing what happened with us, now looking forward, it's also nice to see that the younger financial advisors and accountants coming through the office, and that's the next generation, and they are part of the culture, and it bodes well, I believe.
I think the one thing that we can still add on this is the fact that a client only realizes the value as soon as he's been gone.
Try somebody else.
And then came back and said, listen, now I understand the value.
That extra 500 you're charging, the value I get.
And the main thing about a client is if you charge somebody 50 Rand a month to do the income tax and financial planning, and they don't realize the value, you're expensive. If you charge them 5,000 Rand a month, and they realize the value and they can see the value that you add to their business, you're not expensive.
Good, Gerhard, thank you. I think it's very important to realize that we now see what the benefits are for clients to stick to a company with a 25-year track record, that's also planning for the future, and the knowledge and experience being transferred to the next generation, that the benefits to the new clients coming to the office will last forever, and that the value that they don't perceive, that they will receive for a long time to go, and get the professionals and stick to a plan, and eventually you will reap the benefits.